Hello, everyone. My name is Jonas Cain, and I am part of a new group called the Compassionate Revolution of Grief and Grieving, CRGG. And in our first course, we're going to go over how to release stress, heal trauma, accept loss, allow grief. And I'm privileged to be one of the facilitators of this group, along with an amazing woman named Ami, who is here with us today. Hello, Ami.
Hey, Jonas, good to see you.
It's so good to see you. I have known you now, Ami, for it's been a number of years. I think it was probably 2017, 2018 or so. I met you out and about, and we quickly not only became friends, but quickly became colleagues as well. And I've consistently been impressed with your work. I've been a client of yours as well over the years. So I am thrilled to be working with you here, and I'm thrilled to also interview you so everyone can get to know you better.
Thank you, Jonas.
Uh, you're always welcome. I have three specific questions for you, so I'm interested to see what you'll have to say to these. My first question for you is, what is your personal experience with grief and grieving?
So, probably the biggest loss that I've been grieving is the loss of my daughter, Michelle. Michelle died in 2005, and I was impressed by the process of grieving. And all I can say is grief has been like my most sacred teacher through these years. And at first, when I started grieving, I felt like things were very clear. Like I've always been a pretty clear thinker or wanted to be a clear thinker. That's been my path. But things got very, very acutely clean and clear. Like my heart was so pure and my words were very clear. And the people around me were kind of impressed, I guess, by the things that I was saying about grief and grieving, that I was experiencing it and watching it as a witness and talking about it as a teacher. And people were saying things to me like, what you're saying is material that needs to be heard. And so I wasn't really ready until now, I guess, to create a course and to teach and make a real cultural container for grief and grieving and offer that to people in that kind of a teaching modality kind of way. So I'm ready. I'm ready now.
You
Yeah.
ready to you ready to fully step into this?
Yeah.
It's beautiful how your personal experience with this has not only prepared you for this moment, but it's really made you an impactful leader of this, which leads right into my next question, which you kind of already answered it, is to what has what has led you to this point to qualify you to lead a group like this. And you did touch on that, but could you speak a little bit more about your background and the things you've learned over the years?
Sure. Sure. So I think that I was able to be that person when Michelle died, even though you can't prepare. You can prepare, you can have lots of tools and you can prepare for grief and grieving, but you can't alleviate the process of grieving because you've been prepared. So, but what prepared me to be able to be part of grief and really allow grief, I think is what the preparation did for me. It got me to the point where I could allow grief.
Hmm.
So that kind of preparation was, I was always interested in death and dying. Um, and when I was a little girl, I would have seances and try and contact my aunt who died when I was probably 7 or 8, and our dog who had died. And, I probably heard and saw spirits. That part is a little bit, pushed aside, and I'm trying to get that back a little more.
Hmm.
Because of our culture, not accepting that it wasn't acceptable. And so I think that got pushed aside a bit. But I've always been interested in that And then when I was 17 years old, I had an out-of-body experience. And I think that allowed me to see things very differently, to understand that this physical body is not, this brain and this heart and these lungs are not the only part of me, that I existed. I thought, I saw, I felt. The same personality was the same person who was out of my body. And so, what was that? And so that was very helpful for me to wander through the path of metaphysics and spirituality. And so even before Michelle died, I was preparing to acknowledge what it's like to leave your body, or to have a relationship with someone beyond their body. All of that kind of stuff helped me to be open to the grieving process, which includes a whole lot of everything, including supernatural kinds of things that happen to people. Sometimes we can't explain it, but we just have a knowing, and I have a great deal of knowing. And so I studied death and dying. I became a hospice volunteer. I was a death doula. I help people to cross over and leave their body. I help their families grieve after. I've been facilitator of bereavement groups. I've done work with individuals mostly around grief and grieving, and my psychic abilities kind of kick in every once in a while, although that is not where I want to go. It's not acceptable enough for me to feel comfortable about having that be my work. So it's just a part of being with somebody who is grieving. Sometimes that comes up.
Mm. You've had some fascinating experiences that I've known you for how long now, for in things I didn't even know about you. It's amazing, and I'm really thrilled to that people will be able to learn with and also from you as well, that you bring all of your background into this experience. I do have one final question for you, Ami, and it's what you are most excited about this course.
Yeah, so I'm excited to bring all this in too. Um, I feel like a lot of times I'm ahead of the game. 30 years later, I start hearing about people doing things that I was excited about, that nobody wanted to talk about, nobody wanted to hear about. And so this whole idea of opening up grief and grieving in a way that our culture has not accepted it before, this idea of having this revolution of, compassion, of seeing and feeling things together in a way that we just haven't had that be our focus before, is exciting to me. I've been holding on to this and waiting for this, and I feel like finally maybe it's time. And I've met a couple of people, including Jonas, you, and Richard, our other facilitator, who are also excited. So I'm just like, oh, finally, there's people around me who are also excited about this idea of bringing in, how do we bring in a way of seeing each other and being together where we just acknowledge that everybody has loss, not just death, but all kinds of loss. Like, I'm learning so much already about, okay, so let me backtrack for a second. So I did a webinar. It was like 2.5 hours long. It was 2 hours, and then it was a half an hour of people being able to talk afterwards. I did a webinar, and I was preparing for this webinar about grief and grieving. And I did 3 practice groups with a bunch of people before the actual webinar for my AAP, which is the Association for the Advancement of Psychosynthesis. So before I was going to do that, I did 3 preparation webinars. And all 4 of those groups, the 3 preparation groups and the 1 big group that I did with about 30 people in it, I learned so much about the different kinds of losses that people haven't felt free to grieve because they didn't have the support around them, and they didn't have the tools to know how to. Like grief, not just from death, grief from loss of identity when somebody was gay and didn't come out until they were in their late 20s. And now that they're in their late 60s, they're just starting to be able to be married a few years ago and be more out about themselves. And this loss of identity for years, for decades, that they've had to deal with it. Now they're grieving this loss. And, someone who I know who is transgender, and a lot of things happened in their life when they were younger, a lot of abuse, a lot of societal, putting them down for who they are and their choices, and having to grieve all of, not fitting into a society that doesn't allow you to be who you are when you're different from the norm. And there's just so many kinds of loss that people haven't had the support and the tools to know how to grieve. So I'm very excited about learning about more and more ways that people need this. And I'm excited about being part of the revolution of creating it.
Well, I'm right there with you. I'm excited to explore all the different colors and variations in the spectrum of grief. You bring up some amazing points. So I'm excited that you'll be facilitating this along with myself, along with Richard. And I'm excited that all of you who are listening, you have the opportunity to join us as well. So we encourage you to join this compassionate revolution of grief and grieving. Ami, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me and interviewing me. And I'm so excited about our course starting, and I hope people are excited and register.
Yes, and attached to this video is the link, so people can click on the link to learn more about the course, but also to register for the course. So we encourage you to do that, and we hope to see all of you at the first day of class.
Lots of love.
Take care, Ami. Thank you so much.